Alright, hi everyone, this is Jobenblue, and in this video we're going to be taking a first look at the SHF Raditz. If you're wondering why this one went up later than everyone else, it's because I got it later than everyone else. I mean, people were saying that theirs were showing up on the day that mine was shipped. I don't know if it was sabotage or what's going on. I totally understand if it was. This box is about 10 inches tall, and mine actually did not have the scouter on the face whenever it first showed up. I know that some people have said that they just didn't even have a scouter in the box, or they had extra hands, or like, I know there's been a ton of problems with this Raditz release, especially overseas. Like, some people were already chipping the thing while they were just simply opening it up and playing with it and whatever. Mine doesn't have any problems, but with people talking about having some problems with this thing, maybe a little bit worried about if SHF just kind of rushed this out there just so that they could hit that deadline of one new SHF a month, which seems to be what they're going for. And it seems like the quality is slipping just a little bit. So luckily, mine didn't really have any huge problems with it, but we'll talk about it. Alright, so we had a brown insert with this figure, and then here is the manual. Yeah, it's interesting how these faces go on here, where it actually comes out of the hair. Because most of the time, like for Vegeta faces, which this one is pretty similar to, the face is actually connected to the hair like that. So I was surprised that they actually did disconnected hair and face for Raditz. One detail I don't know if you ever noticed is that his hands here actually do go over his thumb. So, and the arms do pop out. I'll show you how that works in a second. I did have some problems with it. And there's that backplate that you'll see in a second as well. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the accessories first. As far as the faces were concerned, I thought they all turned out pretty good. I mean, I think they all look fairly nice paint-wise. I wouldn't say that the sculpt is entirely accurate, and I think that's because in the manga, Raditz is just like a little bit softer, but in the anime, he's like got a more sharper, chiseled jaw. I think that the faces included were good. You got a scowl, you have the smirk face, you have like a shot with a special beam cannon, just an open mouth face. They all look pretty good. I just noticed this now, that the mouth is actually a separate piece that's been plugged in, so that's kind of cool. The tail that's on him is actually a lot squishier than what we're used to. Like this one, the one that wraps around is actually like super squishy. I like it a lot. And then the other one that's with it is not as squishy, which is kind of disappointing. He also has crossed arms, which we'll talk about those in a second as well. And then a back plate back here that you can pop this one off, and then you can pop this one onto here. And actually, whenever they first showed this off, this piece was clear, so I'll show that. I would have preferred the clear, but I totally get why they went with black and might have blended in a little bit better. I really wish, in terms of accessories, he would have came with another, like a damaged pauldron, because the first time Piccolo fires a special beam cannon, all he does is he misses Raditz, but he hits the shoulder and he blows off the shoulder. So when Raditz and Goku are getting shot through the chest, he doesn't even have this thing over there. So it's kind of weird. But other than that, I would say that those are all the accessories I was looking for. There aren't a lot of hands, but I really don't know what else you could have included with it. I would say maybe holding a bullet hand, like whenever he first meets the shotgun farmer. So yeah, hand swap out fine. Faces swap out fine. I don't know if I showed that, but yeah, it comes off like that. and then like that. One problem I do have with this scouter is that it sits up too high. Like, it's supposed to be more centered like that, but for some reason mine's showing up like that. I don't know. I tried to push it into the ear, but it's just not working right, because every time I do, it always angles stupid, so I don't know what's going on there. Okay, so let's just start with articulation and stuff like that. So one of the problems I have with the hair is that it actually does not move back enough. Like, in order for Raditz to do a proper flying pose, the hair would need to be able to bend back just a little bit more. I mean, it's okay, but it could be a lot better. And the biggest problem here is that these spikes here on the side would have been better if they were on like another ball joint to get out of the way, because it really does limit how much he can look up. But it's also not entirely terrible. With SSJ3, what they did was like 3 different little sections connected by a ball. I like this a lot better. So in terms of if we ever do get another SSJ3, I think the hair will be better like this. Because the ones on the SSJ3, the 1.0 and even the 2.0, just aren't really wide enough. But this one is good. I don't think that the hair is too heavy or anything like that. So it's good. It is on a ball. You can see here. It can kind of swoop out to the side a little bit. Not a ton, though. Yeah, you can totally see some swooping action going on back there. Neck's fine. Not tons of range. These shoulder things, I like these better than what they did for Scouter Vegeta and Jace. It does not need Ginyu's style, which are these pegs that stick in and out, because Raditz never really took off his armor. Neither did Ginyu, so I don't know why they put it on this one. But for Raditz, I like the shoulders the way that they did it, because there's no reason for these to come off, because Raditz never had these come off. And there is a marking on there. These ones on the bottom here, on the side, like to come off pretty easily. The one in the middle does not want to come off at all, but the ones on the sides, like the first time I was making this, these ones came off like all the time. So, little unfortunate, and it is a little loose, so maybe you could stick some blue tack in there or something to fix it. In the anime, Raditz has like a blue tint to his armor and his hair, but in the manga, it's just straight black, which I like better because that matches Goku as well as Bardock. So I'm glad that they didn't try and put like a blue tint on this, because I think it would have looked kind of weird. But the paints are all very nice on this thing. These red bands are actually white in the manga, so I'm glad that they kept those as red. I think it looks so much cooler as red as opposed to the white that you see in there. Arms here, you can see that double hinge in action, half extension, and then come out here and do the full extension. I think it does enough. Let's go ahead and talk about Jiren. We'll be talking about Jiren quite a bit here. But one of the first things about this is I don't like this style. We saw it last week with Android 17. I really would have liked if they had gone with the Jiren style and done this. I wish that they would do this for all their figures, but especially the big ones. I don't see why they wouldn't put that on there. Those hands, you can see what I was talking about, where it does wrap around the thumb. This is an area where a lot of people were having problems with paint scuffing in particular, and I know that this right here is actually a bit of damage from the first time I opened this thing. I guess I just accidentally scratched it and a little bit came off. I don't know if you noticed this, but we have multiple different armored characters. We got Ginyu, we got Scouter Vegeta, Raccoon, Jace, and now Raditz, and I never owned Nappa. What I don't understand is why doesn't everyone just have Ginyu's articulation? Because this is not out of the range of human anatomy. So I don't know why they didn't just go in there with a catapult joint for all of these. I think it's kind of stupid that we have so many armor characters and then we don't just use the best one that there is. This one is using a weird version. It's almost like a modified Jiren. That came off the first time I was reviewing that, and I was like so worried I'd broken it because I was just trying to figure out what the hip articulation was. But you can see that this is pretty much just a reuse of the Jiren abs, which are not good. So that's very disappointing to see. This is the bottom side, and this is the top side. You can't see a ton in there. Anyways, it's a little bit of a reuse of Jiren. It doesn't even do Jiren's forward crunches right with this waist ball here. And I don't know. It's not good. I don't know why they didn't just use the Ginyu articulation. You got this beautiful little hinge system down there like you did on the original Trunks, the Saiyan armor Trunks. So I don't know why you have Ginyu's body and you use anything other than that, because this thing is fantastic. And yeah, you should be able to do that on all of these Saiyan armor characters, especially because it's got the hinge down there. It's also got the other one right here. It just doesn't make much sense to me how they had that great body and then they just screwed it up for the rest of the Ginyu Force and Raditz. So the whole torso and waist section is pretty disappointing. So that's about how far you can kick forward until this piece wants to pop out, which is disappointing. But it goes on there super easy. This is pretty tight. I think I put some silicone oil on there. If not, I probably should. But yeah, this one is pretty tight. This one isn't nearly as bad. I don't know. I did apply silicone oil to one of these two things. So watch out for this spot because it is very tight. These knees, I know, are a source of like argument because whenever we naturally use our figures, the only thing that we do is we push on the shins and everything gets filled in. It looks all pretty and stuff like that. No problem. Except that doesn't work for Raditz, because as soon as you push on the shin, you have this ugly gap here. So what you actually have to do is you have to hold the knee in place and then move the shin, which is disappointing. And like the difference between this and this isn't a whole lot. And honestly, like natural, like most people, I would say that that's a decent enough range. I mean, these are not by any means like Jedis or anything that have to be on their knees. So like there's no reason for it to have to do this. So this is fine for me. This is good enough as well. But yeah, this is pretty ugly that this gap is here. I don't know why it's like that, but it is. You just have to hold the knee in place before you start moving the shin. Otherwise, if you just start moving the shin like what you're used to, you're going to have this ugly exposed knee, and it's just stupid. This is like kind of an ankle rocker, I guess. It's not straight down, that's for sure. The range on the up is not very good either. That's about as far as I can feel comfortable getting that pushed. And then it's got toe bend. And you have no problem here with hyperextending or anything like that. I think it actually is running into itself right there. I think that's what's stopping it, because it doesn't seem super flat on the actual part that sticks out, if you know what I mean. Let's talk about the swapping arm gimmick, because this is where I really came into a ton of problems. Like, I get going into most of these figures with a drill bit set or blue tack or silicone oil or anything like that. That's totally fine to me, but I do understand it is pretty annoying, and I could not get these arms out of the package without without using some heat treatment, because I tried pulling on them and they were just They were so freaking tight. So what I actually did was I popped off the hands and I stuck the arm into some hot water, and then I waited till it was hot enough to be able to pull off, and then I started working on it, because if I had just pulled it off straight out of the package, it would have ripped and broken these things straight off, just like, you know, what happened with Jiren, which was disappointing. But I was able to get the arms popped out of there, and then I figured out what the problem was. So this one right here was a 9/64 inch, and the one on the right arm was the 1/8 inch. So as soon as I popped these out, I went in there with the 9/64 and I drilled out this one, and then I went over here with the 1/8 and drilled out that one. And it's hard to see. It's kind of hard to see, but you can actually tell that the left arm is cut to a 9/64 inch and the right arm is cut to a 1/8 inch. So that was interesting to me. I don't know if that was part of the reason why I'm so tight, but anyways, I got them popped out. I used the 9/64 on here and the 1/8 on here and got it all fixed up and squared out. And that's the same thing I did for my Jiren as well. So be extremely careful that you don't break these. I've done this before, so hopefully it doesn't break this time. Okay, when you are putting in these arms, you need to look at the bottom side here to know whenever you've pushed far enough, because you'll see it in a second. But anyways, you want it to be flush down here. Don't try and push it farther, because the problem is that this is what it looks like from the outside. It doesn't go in far enough. Like, that looks stupid, and I know what the problem is. I'll talk about it in a second. And just kind of hope it's in, or try and find the right angle, and I think that's pretty good. And then you want to push down and kind of morph it around until you can tell that it is flush against the body. Yeah, I haven't talked about these butterflies. I'll talk about them in a second, but they are not very ideal. Okay, so that's like as close as I'm going to get it right now, but you can mess with it a bit more. And I know that that is as well as it wants me to put it in there. As stupid it is, you can see that gap right there. You can see that same gap right there on the figure. So it was actually designed that you would have this gap, which doesn't make any sense. I don't know why they wouldn't have just said screw it and cut out a little bit of this muscle here in order to get it flush with the body, but they didn't. So you have these ugly little gaps here. I assume that the problem with what happened was that they started with the arms in ZBrush, and then they crossed them over, and then they cut away parts of it in order to make this as close to as accurate as this as possible. This is actually a problem that Funko has ran into and dealt with before, which is that, like, with crossed arm poses, those figures, you see them, they look stupid, right? So the problem is, if you took the actual proportions of a Funko Pop and tried to do these kind of poses with them, it would look ridiculous. So you have to scale like up or down in order to match the pose that you actually want to go for, and I can tell that SHF did not want to do that. So what you're left with are these ugly little gaps here. I personally don't think that the trade-off was worth it. I really think that you should have done this in a way that you could have got that to sit flush, but the way it's just actually designed, it doesn't fit flush, and there are these ugly little gaps over here. I'm not saying that it's plugged in the best right here, but it's pretty close to what it's supposed to be. I mean, it's just an inherent design flaw with the way that they did the crossed arms. I have actually debated just heating these up and pulling out the actual shoulders themselves, because I think that the female in there is actually too tight. I think the male on the left arm on this one is actually bigger than the male on the left arm of this one, because it's cut to a 9/16, and this is almost like loose, but not entirely. But for this one, it's almost like too tight. Like, it's almost like a 10/64 versus a 9/64. And it's like those little things that make all the difference. So the arms are not my favorite, but you know, it's something that you kind of expect if you own a ton of figures. They're not always going to come out of the package properly. You shouldn't try and break them to prove a point or anything like that. So just heat them up, take them out, drill out the females, and just move on. There's really not much else you can do. But yeah, this butterfly joint in here is kind of weird. It's got like an up and down, and it's got the left and right. Jiren's was pretty much the same way, except for the one with Jiren, you can get all the way out to here and stuff like that. But with Raditz, like, you just can't do anything with it. It's like they adapted the Jiren body, but just didn't know why they were using the Jiren body, and was unable to get all of the kind of things that made the Jiren butterfly joints work properly. My impressions of this thing are, it's not very good. You know, I genuinely don't care that I have to heat up the figure and pop it out and then go back in there with a drill bit or use silicone oil or blue tack or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, honestly, that's kind of fun for me in a weird, kind of sick, twisted way. But it's just everything else that's there that I can't fix with those things that really, really bother me. The hair's not on ball joints. I think it should have been. I think it's kind of dumb we didn't have a second pauldron. The crossed arms just look stupid. Everything about it just does not work. The whole gappiness of this thing, the side over here not looking very well. The body should have been on the Ginyu body. I mean, I don't know how you've already perfected this type of body and then you just go off and make this. Whatever it is, doesn't work. I don't like it. The faces, there's something that's off about them, and it's not good. You went to 90% to make a decent figure, but it's that extra 10% where you kind of messed up. I mean, we're not going to get a Raditz figure for 10 years, maybe 20, and I bet whenever that figure comes out, there's going to be those same echoes of sentiment that I've been saying today. It's decent, but it could have been so much better. If I had to review this today and give it a final score, I would probably give it about a 2.25. There's so much more room for improvement and ways that this thing could have been better, that I think it's the knowing of what could have been versus what we actually got, which has made this one so much worse. Because if you said that Raditz came out before Ginyu, I could totally believe you. But if you're saying that Ginyu came out before Raditz, and Ginyu, as amazing as that thing is, and then you have Raditz, I honestly don't think it's that good. It's not horrible, but it could have been so much better. That's what I think about this thing. This has been Jobenblue. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.